All right, moving on. It's going to be a very Disney heavy episode here. So right now on the screen we have Disney stock currently at $85.07 before the open. Stock market opens over at 9:30 Eastern, so that's in 5 minutes. And one of the bigger things that they did last week was they bought out the rest of Hulu. So if you didn't know, Disney, we kind of have to go backwards here. Disney purchased Fox back in 2019. And that's when we all had those fun jokes of like, oh, now the alien queen is going to be like a Disney princess. And like all those jokes is because Disney bought out Fox Studios. We also had the full-on faith that now we're going to get X-Men in the Marvel universe because that's under Fox. So Disney bought out Fox Studios. But what they did not own was all of Hulu. Hulu was tied to Fox. But Comcast, the cable company, the parent company, they owned 33% of Hulu. So it wasn't all under Fox. There was like a shared ownership there. So this whole time since the purchase, Disney was playing ball with Hulu in this co-parenting operation of Hulu. So last week, Disney finalized almost, which you'll see, the sale or the purchase of Hulu. So we're going to head over to our good friends at Yahoo Finance and take a listen. Make sure you guys can hear it. See what they have to say.
Officially agreed to buy Comcast's remaining 33% stake in Hulu for at least $8.61 billion. The two sides now enter negotiations for the streaming platform's valuation. Yahoo Finance's Alexandra Canal has those details. Oh, Ali, this is an interesting one here.
Yeah.
Sorry, just making sure you guys can hear it. Just let me know in the chat. I'm pretty sure I saw the sound bar moving, but I just want to make sure the volume was good. Sal says, what the hell happened to the X-Men? Do they have a date? I feel like that isn't happening either. I think X-Men will happen. Right now, X-Men 97, the follow-up to the animated series, that's coming out. I think they're being careful with the X-Men. They're as much as we like to think they're sloppy with everything, I think they're really making sure the groundwork is laid out before they dive into the X-Men. The date keeps getting pushed back on 97. But I'm going to assume you guys can hear it because nobody has answered that question. That's fine. We'll continue.
Yes, and we finally have the answer on what's going to happen with Hulu. And as expected, Disney will soon control 100% of that service. Now, under the terms of the agreement, Disney is going to pay Comcast, NBC Universal a minimum $8.61 billion by December 1st. Now, this represents the floor of what Comcast is owed for Hulu. The two sides will enter into those negotiations. And if it's determined that the value of Hulu is greater than what the floor suggests, Disney will pay the percentage of that difference. Now, Hulu, it's a very great streaming service. If you take a look at some of the titles that have come out of that, like Only Murders in the Building, The Handmaid's Tale, it boasts around 48 million subscribers. Disney CEO Bob Iger has said general entertainment content, like the content that Hulu provides, is really core to the company's content strategy moving forward. And that's despite initially telling investors earlier this year that all options were on the table for Hulu. Clearly, he's changed his.
So this is the interesting part to me when it comes to this whole buyout of Hulu. It's what you see on screen right now. 48 million people subscribe to Hulu as of July, according to their source. How many people subscribe to Disney Plus? 14.6. Oh, sorry, 146.7 million as of Q3 fiscal 2023. It's a drop from Q4 2022. So I'm wondering, in years past, Disney has wanted to just rule everything, like run the world. And that seems to have changed over the last year. But a move like this makes me think, oh, they're trying to go back to their old ways. Of the 49, it said 48, 50 million that have Hulu, like how many of them do you think don't already have Disney Plus? So that's where I'm like, I don't think you're really gaining much outside of like you're gonna eliminate a streaming service. Like they're probably gonna fuse it together. Or maybe they're gonna end up doing what the original plan was, where Hulu has the more mature type shows and whatnot, and then Disney can go full on like kid. Maybe, but I feel like I still don't understand why you need to own two services to show similar content. But let's see what they continue to say.
Stance on that. And now we have at least one outstanding issue close to being solved for this company and just ahead of earnings next week.
And so, Ali, another outstanding issue for Disney is ESPN and finding strategic partners to help with its streaming ambitions. What's the latest commentary from Wall Street? Because we know sports is always that big barrier here that a lot of these streamers are trying to contend with.
As well, we have a new note from Bank of America that said ESPN could be valued at $24 billion and seek a variety of potential buyers there. We do know that Disney has engaged in strategic partnership talks with professional sports leagues like the NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL. But Bank of America said that there are other possible partners out there, like big tech with Amazon and Apple, or even telecom giants like Verizon and Comcast, which would help on the distribution side. Now, Bank of America did assume that Disney would want to maintain a 51% majority stake. Hearst already has a 20% stake in ESPN. So that leaves a 36% interest in this sports network when it comes to who a potential buyer could be. The capital, of course, would greatly help Disney at a time when its streaming efforts have been struggling. They could potentially pare down some of those losses. However, who the buyer of ESPN would ultimately be is a little hazy, considering we're in this transitional period for media. We've seen traditional TV declining. We've seen cable really not doing so hot, with cord cutting escalating. We've recently saw ESPN financials for the first time, and that showed a decline over time in profit. So TBD on who would ultimately want this. We will see even more of those financials next week and ultimately hear from CEO Bob Iger. So we'll just have to wait and see when it comes to that, because you're right, Rochelle. Sports is the next big thing in media. Disney needs the money. ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, but there's also overhanging issues as well.
It's weird that it's an interesting time right now. Like the internet has created this problem where you would think owning everything is the way to go, but then at the same time, you're only getting what, if you add up all those apps they mentioned, you're getting what, $30 out of a household to run all those different apps, 3 different services, all those respective shows. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I think I still don't understand the move here. Like, you guys mentioned in the comments the HBO Discovery thing. Like with that one, I understood it because Discovery as an app was doing okay because people started really leaning into the reality stuff, but the HBO app on its own was starting to struggle. So they're like, all right, bring it together so that you go to one place to get all these shows, reality and the pre-recorded movies and TV shows and all that stuff. But on this one, I feel like it's the same person that has Disney and has Hulu. And Disney's declining in the app, so maybe they're trying to get ahead of that. But I think you're still able to double dip by having it separately. So I don't understand the buy, unless you're like, oh, I'm tired of paying Comcast a third. But if you make it so that Comcast has to front some cost to make shows, I don't see the issue. So I'm curious. I want to see, this week when there's the earnings call on Wednesday, I do want to see what they have to say about all of that. If it, maybe there's something we're not thinking about when it comes to that purchase. And then, of course, ESPN. Most of you here are all streamers, content creators, consumers of streamers and content creation. I never really see any of these networks talk about streaming as far as like a talking head style of talking head style content. Like, I don't really hear that come up a lot. Like, I was thinking about Kai Cenat the other day. If you don't know him, the probably top 3, top 5 streamer in the world. He did a week stream in a jail that he bought out for like a week-long skit, essentially, and was doing crazy numbers over on Twitch. Like, I'm wondering when some of these big companies, your Netflix, your Hulu, your Disney, like, well, I guess Disney and Hulu are the same, Discovery, Max. I wonder when any of them are going to say, maybe we should cut a deal with a streamer so that they could live stream on our app. So, like, you know how your kid probably would sit there on their iPad and watch, whatever cartoon on Netflix. They're usually like, oh, it's 8:00. Turn off Netflix, load up Twitch, watch their favorite streamer on Twitch. Like, at what point does like a Netflix say, how do we get some of those streamers so that those kids stay on our app? Or is that too expensive to now have your app transform into like a community thing where like there's a chat and you can't control that streamer, right? They just do whatever. I don't know. I feel like there's an opportunity there. Hello there, says General Kenobi. I didn't wake up late. I didn't think you did. But it's good to see you. Sal says at least Disney will get more anime with Hulu. No more app switching. Yep. T3 says they want to move it to Disney Plus to paid subscribers. Or pad subscribers, sorry. I thought maybe you meant to say paid, but you wrote pad, but I understand what you mean now when you say pad subscribers. Pad the numbers up. Sal says Twitch was talking about cutting that shit out. I read an article that Twitch can't handle the 7-figure streamers anymore. It might not happen at Disney. You wrote happy, but I'm thinking it meant happen. LeBron says Kenobi was up too late clubbing. He probably was. K-Walk, good to see you. K-Walk says, I don't know if that benefits streamers or is it taking advantage of them? True. But before that, K-Walk said, Netflix would own the rights to your streams, ? Potentially. So going back to Sal's comment there, Twitch was talking about cutting that shit out. I read an article that Twitch can't handle the 7-figure streamers anymore. Might not happen, or happy, I'm not sure what you meant, but happen at Disney. So I think we grazed over that the other day, talking about Spotify and Apple paying for like crazy. Sorry. I was like holding back a burp the whole time. I think we talked about that the other day with Apple and Spotify, like not wanting to pay those crazy numbers anymore for the podcasts, like Joe Budden podcast, Joe Rogan podcast, like those kinds of things. I think it might be different with the live streaming than it would be like a Spotify. Maybe. I think the biggest benefit would be if Netflix or Disney says, you could still access these live streams on the free tier, so we're running ads on it. Like maybe you get that. You try to go almost like the YouTube route. But yeah, paying these people like an absurd amount of money up front, I feel like that might be done. I can see that. Because think about it this way, right? Like they could pay a Speed, right? Like iShowSpeed. They could pay him, $5 million a year to stream exclusively on Netflix. Or you take that $5 million and you buy up a bunch of like lower tier streamers, and then you bring them on. Like maybe you get more bang for your buck. You get a couple streamers in the game space, in the nerd space, in the reality TV space. Like maybe you do that, It's interesting. It is a real interesting time, because ultimately, as a content creator, you are subject to the algorithm, right? So like our show can only go so far if YouTube, Twitch, Kick, Instagram, if they don't push your content to the right people at the right time. But like if Netflix came to me and was like, "Hey, we'll give you $100,000 and we'll put you on the front, content creator thing for a week, and you could do your show on our platform for a year, and then we'll see what we do after that." I mean, I'd say yes, because you're default going to get more people watching because you're on the front of Netflix, So it's interesting. It's an interesting time. I'm really excited to see where all of this goes, because like even in the year 2023, it seems like the power has like made a small shift towards the worker versus the boss. Not anywhere where it should be, but I feel like it's made that move a little bit, and I feel like content creators are the next wave of that. The next wave of, we have the power, not the company. But it's a matter of, will people sell out? Will people take deals that are shitty just because they're like, oh, it's a deal, similar to like the rap deals back in the day? So I don't know. I find this really, I find it all really interesting. Sorry if I've bored you guys for the last 20 minutes talking about this, but I don't know. I find it interesting. I love it. Sal says, I've been watching this guy, Maximilian Dodd. He got famous off of the FGC fighting game community. His net worth is $8 million just for gaming a few hours every day. Yeah. Now there's a lot of money there. There's a lot of money there. And that money, what people don't realize, that money comes from the ad revenue that plays during your stream. So if somebody can run ads on your show, that's where they will potentially bite. Cool. All right. Last thing before we go into our crowdfund updates of the week.